Let's pray. Lord, that's where I ask that you would make us all go. He worshiped him. That is an awesome thing, to worship a human being. It is so close to blasphemy. And yet, that's the point of the Bible. Jesus is the God-man, and he has come into the world to seek worshipers. And he dies to make it happen. I feel very unworthy to speak for him, and I know that unless you come, eyes will remain closed and affections will remain dead toward Jesus. So come, I pray, in his name. Amen. Last time we focused on verses 1 through 5. And we saw that Jesus sees a man blind from birth. The disciples asked what the cause of it was, the cause of being born blind, and Jesus turns it around and says, it's not a cause issue here, it's a purpose issue. Cause is never the decisive explanation of anything. Purpose, divine purpose, is always the decisive explanation of everything. Cause can take you so far, but purpose takes you all the way. Why something is. It was not that this man sinned or his parents, human causes, but that the works of God might be displayed in him, God's purpose. So, no matter what mess you have gotten yourselves into, no matter what pain you're in right now from any number of human causes, that's not the main point of it. That's huge for you to get a hold of. Right here at the beginning from last week. Whatever pain you bring, whatever mess you bring, and whatever causes got you there is not the point. You can drive yourself crazy on that issue and get nowhere. It will take you nowhere to get that sorted out. Is it her fault or his fault or my fault or their fault? Fault won't get you anywhere. Only what's God going to do now? What was he doing in that? Where is he taking us, me? That's the answer you want. And it's there. Romans 8:28 is there. God works all messes, all pain, all failure, all sorrows, all successes together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And so it was a massive thing we saw last time. Of course, it won't make any sense unless you treasure the manifestation of the works of God over seeing or life. He said it was that the works of God might be displayed. And if you say, I'd rather have my eyes, then this won't make any sense. This will do you no good. This assumes something. It assumes Psalm 63:3. Your steadfast love is better than life. Better to be loved by God than to be alive. Or it assumes what I read in my devotions this week from Revelation 2:10. Jesus says to the prisoners in Smyrna, be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. And if they say, I would rather be alive here, then this won't make any sense. So verse 3 is assuming something. It's assuming that we treasure God, seeing him, knowing him, loving him, being with him forever, over having eyes on the planet or being alive here. It assumes that. And I know all of you aren't there. That's why I pray, God, desperately, open your eyes. The open eyes of the heart that we sang about is all about seeing God and Christ as more precious than life. You know that your eyes have been opened when that value change happens in you. I want him more than I want to be alive in this family, on this vacation, in this retirement, in this job, in this mothering role. I want Christ more than you know your eyes have been opened to see what is valuable, infinitely valuable. When you have seen that God has a massively hope-filled purpose for your pain, loss, mess, brokenness, when you see that and you trust it, you're in a position now to be brokenheartedly bold, to be strong in your weakness, and you're in a position to help others make it through even when they can't see it. I want to pause here and just say how thankful I am for how many of you already went on to the Table Project, the private online Bethlehem community that we announced 2 weeks ago. And the reason I feel so thankful about that and want to encourage the rest of you to make that move is that I've been following the prayer wall and just what's happening. Let me give you an illustration. Here's a woman, and you may be in this room, and probably you'll be watching the video if you're not in this room, who's struggled for years with infertility. She was open enough, because this is our church. This is not Facebook, okay? This is our church. And she just said that, and she said she's having a hard time feeling loved by God. 35 people, the last I saw, are all over that, praying for her, and about 4, when I last looked, had said to her what looked to me like very delicate, sensitive. You can't always count on that, right? But this time it looked that way. These are women who had been there, and one man who'd been there, and they said things hope-filled. Now, that's the kind of thing that happens when you come into a profound conviction and belief that God, in and through loss, has a kind and loving and unshakable good purpose for you. And then you're able to, whether it's on the table or over coffee or in a small group, help other people make it. So get on the table. If you wonder, what is he talking about? Give us a ring and say what we'll tell you how to do it if you're part of the family here. Okay. Here we are at verse 6. Having said these things, he spat on the ground and made mud with saliva, and then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed, and he came back seeing. Let me give you an observation here that sets the stage for everything else that happens in these 41 verses of this chapter. The observation is this. In verse 3, Jesus said, "This man is blind so that the works of God could be manifest." And in verse 4, he says, "We must work the works of him who sent me." And then in verse 6, he makes the mud and he puts it on his eyes and he sends him to the pool and does the works of God. That raises a question. How are we to think about this man? He said this is all about seeing God at work. The glory of God is going to shine on this man, and then he does it. What do we make of this? That's the question this is posing. Everything flows from this. All 41 verses flow from this question. How are we to understand this man doing that? Saying this is all about God shining, and then he does it. That's the question, and it's all about dividing. Some are going to blaspheme, and some are going to worship Jesus. And that's what he's doing. It's all set up to bring worship and to expose blasphemy. Look at verse 24 to see the blasphemy. So, for the second time, they, the Pharisees, called the man who had been blind and said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man's a sinner." God gets glory when you call Jesus a sinner. So do it. I have a name for that. Blasphemy. It's high treason and slander. It's not the main point of the text. That needed to be exposed. The main point is verse 38. Blasphemy is not the main response or the only response. The main response and the intended response is worship. So before this man disappears out of the story completely, the last thing he does is, Lord, you see this in verse 38? Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. If you look up all the other places where this word worship, proskuneo, occurs, they are real worship. This is not just fell down, like Jesus fell down. This is real worship. All the other uses are real worship of God. 6 of them in this gospel. That's the point of the story. So now we know how it starts and where it's going, and everything else is how does it get there, and why does it take 41 verses? What is going on here that gets us there? That's where I want you to get. I would like God to come down in this service and so work through his word that we worship, you worship Jesus. That's where we're going. It's a little foretaste of next week. We stopped at verse 38. There's one more paragraph, and it's all about real blindness. You thought we saw blindness? We haven't seen blindness. We start to meet blindness, and it isn't the beggar who has it. That's what's going on. The blind see, and the seeing are blind. That's the movement. Because John 1:14 says, we beheld his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. That's what he finally saw, and he worshiped. If you see the glory of the Father incarnate in a human being, you worship. Now, how does it unfold? How does he get us there? He used mud, healed him with mud. Why? Could have said, eyes open, and they would have opened. He's done that. He used mud and spit. I have a lot of ideas why. I'll just give you the one that's most obvious in the text, least controversial. I think it's manifest. Namely, he used mud because he knew it was Saturday. Sabbath. And it's against the law to knead dough or clay or mud. One of the 39 interpretations of the Pharisees as to what it means not to work on Sunday was you can't knead dough. And the word for dough is identical, pelon, to the word mud or clay. Like brick masons say, give me some more mud. And all they mean is a big clump of moldable cement. And women working with their bread, because they could call it mud, they usually don't. But it's the same word. He knew exactly what he's doing. I'm going to break the law. I'm going to do it in a way that breaks the law. The law as the Pharisees understood it. Why would he want to do that? Because he's the Lord of the Sabbath and he wants to show that he is. Or to show what the point of the Sabbath is. Rest. Why? Why do you need rest? Healing. If you don't rest, you die. Rest is weekly therapy for dying bodies. Get well. Stop working. So I'm just really illustrating with this. What else would you do on the Sabbath but make eyes see? Especially if you're God and you want to show that you're the creator and sustainer and healer. But I don't think any of those is the main reason why he did it. I think the main reason was to trigger the controversy. I mean, when you look at this story, the story is over virtually at verse 6. Everything else is controversy. Isn't that a little bit disproportional in the gospel? Like if you're writing this story, it's a magnificent ending. He sees and it's clear God has worked. His glory is manifest. That was the point. On to chapter 10 and the shepherd. No, 41 verses of controversy. That's what he was about. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was going to unleash a controversy over this man's healing by doing it on the Sabbath. Because, and we learned some things, little by little, through 5 conversations, this man's eyes get clearer and clearer and clearer. And little by little, the blindness of the Pharisees gets darker and darker and darker. And Jesus divides the house with the controversy to make the darkness of their hearts plain and to bring this man to stronger and stronger faith and more bold witness and greater sight. It is amazing by the end of this text what a beggar is doing with these Pharisees. Stunning. This man knows nothing, right? He's a beggar. He hasn't had a chance to go to school or anything. All he can do is say alms for the blind, and he's silencing the Pharisees. It's just amazing what happens to him. So we're gonna just walk through these five conversations and see this happen. I don't think these are here by accident, and therefore as we walk through them, I expect God to do something here. He's going to do something. Something's going to happen as we just listen to what watch what he's doing in this man and those guys. You don't want to be what the Pharisees are. So as we walk through this, say, God, please, if I'm one of those Pharisee types, please show me, cleanse me, push me over, make me like the blind beggar. Before we go to the 5 conversations, what about the pool? Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. Why did he point out that it was called sent? This is probably John's addition. A little parenthesis here. John is saying, means sent. But no doubt reflecting Jesus' intention. That's the way John writes. Get Jesus right here. So there's something in Jesus' mind and John's mind as he writes this that makes the place of cleansing and healing and seeing more appropriate. And here's my best shot at why he pointed this out and did it this way. if a pool is called sent, what would that mean? I think it means, it's the best, all the reading I've done, the best proposal. There was a spring probably elsewhere, and it was brought in, the water was flowing through some kind of viaduct or stream to the pool. The water was sent from a spring to the pool. This pool wasn't the originator of the water. The water was coming from a spring outside the city or over there, and it was flowing, and here's where it gathers. Here's the pool. So go to a place where water is coming from another source and is coming to you, and wash there, and you will see. And we know that Jesus in chapter 4 with the woman at the well called himself the living water. And we know that right here in verse 4, he says, we must work the works of him who sent me. Right after saying him who sent me, then in verse 7 he says, and that pool is called sent. So my guess is that Jesus means for us to see that water in comparison with himself. And that water, in the context of John, is living water, life-giving water, which says, underneath your cleansing, underneath your seeing, is your new life. And what we watch unfold in this chapter is how the new life of a baby Christian who just received his sight grows into something amazing.